Looking at the clock here, and we're already into overtime. And so I'm looking at winding down here, and I did want to talk about some Route 66 things because this summer we're going to be driving the Route 66, documenting the trip along the way. And I like to at least explain the context where this came from because I've always been attracted to Route 66 my whole life, and I don't know why because I didn't really grow up around it. And there's a song and there's some other things, but as I wrote a book on 66, kind of it's kind of a bathroom reader book where each chapter is a standalone. Like
Mhm.
motels are because of Route
Yep.
66. And when you really think about that, that's amazing because it changed the engineering behind hotels. It changed how cities did civil engineering. And so just there's so many. We mentioned kerosene earlier. Kerosene, when it dominated the planet, people would go to their hardware store. So people would go to hardware store for gasoline before gas stations. Well, Route 66 changed that. And
Yep.
and then I'm a big small business lover and big freedom and independence person. And so the way that Route 66 allowed families and small businesses to go become the door-to-door salesmen allowed art. And that's the other thing. Artists are coming out of the woodwork because it allowed artists to really accentuate their gifts and their products as well, because their music is a product at the end of the day, their stand-up comedy. But there was so many places along Route 66 that enabled and empowered these types of things. So I looked at Route 66 almost as Americana, that our current culture, almost in the same way that 96 to 98% of what we use on a regular basis comes from the oil and gas industry in a roundabout way. I would say about 90% of our culture comes from Route 66 and what has really percolated from there. And that is all because of the internal combustion engine. And that's
Yep.
really what we're going to be focusing our spine on at the end of the day is all this other pomp and circumstance and good feelings that are coming from this 100-year anniversary that Route 66 is bringing, from nostalgia to culture to engineering to Americana. But at the end of the day, let's not forget and celebrate and honor that did come from the internal combustion engine. None of that would have existed without it. So, your comments on that, and do you have any Route 66 memories?
Oh, many, many. I grew up in California. Well, I grew up in the part of the California that thought it was Texas, but still, we spent a lot of time up in the desert part of California along Route 66, and it's a big part of my memory. But I think you're right. The post World War II development of our culture was around the mobility that was created by the car and economic opportunity. And as a energy guy, I would get on my soapbox and argue that that's a fossil fuel argument about the roots of our current culture in this nation. And a lot of what you saw as pushback against that over the last several years of anti-fossil rhetoric, it was an attack on culture of mobility and prosperity that people began to sense. And I think it's to a great extent, I think that's anti-American. Um, but yeah, the symbolic meaning of Route 66, being able to get from, mid-America to the coast in several days. All of the ads that grew up around that, like Chevrolet, see the USA in the Chevrolet, just a great part of our culture for the last 80 years.